Merhaba değerli izleyiciler, yeni bir yayınımıza daha hoş geldiniz. Bugün Paris Söyleşilerinde yine çok özel bir konukla birlikte olacağız. Daha önce Ahmet Kurucan'la, Kerim Balcı'yla, Ayhan Tekineş hocamızla birlikte olmuştuk. Günümüzün çok önemli problemlerini konuşmaya çalışmıştık. Bugün John Pahl bizimle birlikte olacaklar. Hizmet Hareketi'ni ve Hoca Efendi'yi konuşmak istiyoruz. Kendisiyle birkaç günlüğüne Paris'e ziyarete geldi. Paris'i ziyaret ediyor. Biz de ayağının tozuyla kendisini stüdyomuzda ağırlamak istedik. Öncelikle hoş geldiniz diyorum. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here.
It's our pleasure. It's our honor. Thank you. We have small questions about your book and your, understanding of Hizmet. First of all, could you please briefly introduce yourself to our auditors here?
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I look forward to the conversation. I am John Pahl, and I am the Peter, Paul, and Elizabeth Hagen Professor of the History of Christianity at United Lutheran Seminary in Philadelphia. I've taught there for 22 years, and this is my seventh book.
Okay, nice. Then our first question, your book titled Fethullah Gülen'i, A Life of Hizmet, Why a Muslim Scholar in Pennsylvania Matters to the World, was published in 2019. In this book, you analyze the Hizmet movement and Fethullah Gülen. What motivated you to write such a book?
Well, any project like this that took 9 years entails many different motivations. But the deepest motivation is, as a historian, there was not yet any critical biography of Fethullah Gülen in English.
Sorry, what does it mean, a critical biography? What's the difference from others?
So I'm a historian of religions, and that means I sift the evidence carefully to find out historical cause and effect, and to discover the truth about a figure who has been very controversial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hizmet is a religious-based social movement. Throughout history, religions have played a divisive role. In this respect, can the Hizmet movement play a unifying role with its religion originality?
I certainly hope so. And what I have seen in the evidence is that Fethullah Gülen's life has repeatedly faced resistance from the Turkish state, especially, and sometimes from some other Muslims as well. And so Mr. Gülen's own teaching and life's work has been honed through struggle, through difficulty, through resistance. And Hizmet points to a way for religions to contribute to a more peaceful world. The book focuses on 5 chapters that trace Mr. Gülen's life chronologically from his birth to the present. But those 5 chapters also focus on what I call 5 seeds of peace, 5 ways that Mr. Gülen's teaching and the Hizmet community contribute to a more just and peaceful world. And very quickly, those 5 are literacy, that is learning both scientific and religious knowledge. Second, the non-violent practices of Islam, at the heart of Islam, such as prayer. These are practices that contribute to sociability and peace. Third is what I call engaged empathy. That is, Mr. Gülen and people of Hizmet feel the suffering of the world, and unfortunately, in recent years have experienced suffering and oppression, and then organize to do something positive to end that oppression insofar as possible. So engaged empathy. The 4th chapter focuses on the seed of peace that I call principled pluralism, which is in Turkish, hoşgörü, the principle that gets translated as tolerance, but that's really not a good translation of the term. Hoşgörü means something much stronger and means to see another with God's eyes.
Yeah.
That is, to see another with eyes of mercy and compassion. And that practice brings peace. 4th chapter focuses on what I call principled pluralism. or an openness to dialogue and to work together with anyone, no matter the circumstances. And the fifth chapter focuses on mutual consultation, istishara, and the way that practice builds a different kind of business, capitalism that focuses on solving particular social problems such as ignorance, poverty, disunity, and violence. So through all those seeds of peace, Hizmet contributes as a spiritual and religious movement to a more just world, as I see it.
Okay, thank you. Another question: the violent extremism is a very important problem in today's Europe. Today, non-state organizations utilize terrorism and violence as a method. In your opinion, how can Hizmet contribute to the fight against radicalism and violent extremism?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very important matter. Mr. Gülen has been consistently an advocate of nonviolence throughout his life. He is not an absolute pacifist. In other words, he recognizes there are situations where there is a legitimate reason for an authorized regime or government to defend itself. But as far as Hizmet goes, his practice has been consistently in line with the best principles of nonviolence as understood and developed through individuals such as Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Lima Boy, the Liberian Nobel Peace Prize winner. These individuals understood that the first way to make constructive social change is to not mirror evil. That is, don't react to the violence and oppression, but continue patiently to practice the deep practices of the religious tradition. And Mr. Gülen and Hizmet takes its place within a growing number of religious movements around the globe who recognize the deep potential of our spiritual traditions to promote a more just and peaceful world. One of the talks that I've done in many places around the world is a talk entitled Clashing Minorities, Converging Majorities, A Coming Religious Peace, which focuses on how the violent extremists in many traditions, and it's not just Islam, in the United States especially, the most violence has been perpetrated by right-wing Christian nationalists.
Right-wing violent
right?
extremism. In Europe as well.
Yes, correct. And so, but those are a tiny minority of believers around the globe. The vast majority of people, whether Muslim or Christian or Hindu or Buddhist, want to get along. And so it is incumbent upon those of us who are religious leaders, who have a voice, to speak on behalf of the kind of cooperation and dialogue that Mr. Gülen has contributed with his life in many ways.
Thank you. The Hizmet is going through a difficult period today. Many Hizmet volunteers have immigrated to Western democracies. What impact will this have on the future of the Hizmet? What advice you would give to those who migrate to the West?
Well, advice is cheap, and I'm, is sitting in a very comfortable situation compared to the people of Hizmet who have suffered really grave injustice and oppression over recent years. And my heart goes out to all of those who have experienced pain. In the Western democracies in particular, one of the real benefits for Hizmet will be to develop the kind of transparency that is possible and that is expected of NGOs, of non-governmental organizations. Because of the ruthless secularism, or what had been ruthless secularism in the Turkish state, Hizmet and movements like it had to be less than transparent and had to, in some ways, be underground. in Western democracies, there's the capacity for free speech and for full participation in economic life and in civil society. And so that, it seems to me, is a real opportunity for Hizmet and a real way for it to grow around the globe as well, as a voice for human rights, as a voice for greater justice, as a voice for, as Mr. Gülen says, being with the oppressed is the same as being with God, right? And so that fight for greater justice and peace seems to me something that is a growing potential, greater potential for Hizmet in Western Europe, Australia, Albania, places emerging out of oppressive regimes into the future that Mr. Gülen has always advocated for, which is a future of greater justice and peace, equality, compassion, forgiveness, mercy, harmony, working together. All of these things have deep potential both to grow within democracy and to strengthen democracy. Because the fact of the matter is, right now, democracy is in retreat and is struggling around the globe because of authoritarian leaders like Vladimir Putin, like Erdogan, we we can follow the list. In the U.S., we have Trump, who is a dictator wannabe. So it seems to me Hizmet has something really important to contribute to Western democracies as well, through its commitment to strong civil society, to civil Islam, that is Islam that grows from the grassroots and brings a combination of secular skills, really good learning and professionalism, along with a deep spirituality. And that's a powerful combination for the postmodern world, along with a commitment to truth. A really strong commitment to truth. Fethullah Gülen says, power is truth.
Yes.
Right? Any other kind of truth, any other kind of power is going to fail. Right, and that is really the DNA of democracy, is that commitment to the rule of law, to truth, to the fact that we can, as human beings, learn to live together sociably, and that challenge, it seems to me, is what Mr. Gülen has faced throughout the course of his life, and what people of Hizmet have been going through in a ruthless and tragic way over recent years.
How do you interpret the loneliness of the Hizmet, which has helped so many people and communities in the world?
The isolation.
The isolation.
Yeah.
Today is very, very isolated community Hizmet. Why Hizmet is
I think
isolated?
Well, first of all, maybe do you agree with this argument? Maybe you don't think that Hizmet people are isolated?
I think there has always been a degree of insularity, might be another word, that is, and part of that is associated with the Turkishness of the movement historically, right? As Hizmet has gone global, in Australia, in South Africa, in Brazil, in the United States, it seems to me there is an evolution that is happening that will eventually break down that isolation and loneliness and build bridges. The challenge at present is the ruthless long arm of the Turkish dictator, who is preventing some people from taking the steps that they might want to take to work with Hizmet and to defend Hizmet because of fear, because of desire to maintain a good relationship with the Turkish regime. So I think that loneliness, that gurba, that is the melancholy that has been a part of Mr. Gülen's life from the beginning, and I write about this in the biography, that gurba can turn to uns, to companionship, to community, in whatever form. And here's the thing. When we find people with whom to be friends, that's an incredible gift of
Yes.
God, however many it is, and wherever they happen to be. That is an incredible gift of God. So that companionship, that friendship on whatever level, it doesn't take the loneliness away, it doesn't take the challenges away, but it provides a solace for it. And it is my prayer that wherever people of Hizmet find themselves, in Brussels, Berlin, Paris, right, there will be friends who emerge, who will be steady and who will be in solidarity.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Dr. Pahl. Thank you for those concise answers.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for being us today this evening. Thank you for taking your time. It's been a great conversation, and we are hoping to it again one day.
Inshallah.
İnşallah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Right.
Thank you.
Exactly. Peace.
Değerli izleyiciler, bugünkü yayınımızın sonuna geldik. Misafirimiz John Pahl'dı. Kendisiyle Hizmet Hareketi ve Hizmet Hareketi'nin Barış'a katkısı üzerine konuşmaya çalıştık.
Tekrar ben yokum ama siz
Evet.
tekrar programda buluşmak üzere. Ben de iyi günler diliyorum. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Allah'a ısmarladık.